Hello everyone, I'm Brian and welcome to part 2, so let's go ahead and continue on.
I am not an angel, really. I do business and I'm not an angel. I have to contribute to the growth of the company. You know, we have 15,000 all over the world, and my company comes from a little village in France, in the west of France. We are Celtic. And, you know, it's complicated because it's like a balance, you know. I know that I take a lot of things, not only natural things, natural raw material from the earth, you know. I take chemical material from the earth. And I know that I have a depth about the nature. I'm clear with it. I'm not eco-friendly guy. I do business, and also I want to do something positive for the environment. First thing, I think it's a question of to meet people, to have a connection with people. I'm working for a cosmetic company. I'm working for women. I have 50 million customers. I remember when I was in Kenya, in the National United Nations, you know, the program for environment. I met Mrs. Wangari Maathai. Okay. Mrs. Wangari Maathai receives the Peace Nobel Prize in 2004. Why? She receives the Peace Nobel Prize because she planted 37 million trees in Kenya. Why? For the emancipation of the woman. That was the first step. To say, plant the trees, you can have it's like a power, you know, for your children, to eat and to make cooking, you know. And when I met her, you know, when you meet some people, you know, sometimes that change your life. You understand what I mean? That changed your life. And I remember I was with her, and she said to me, you know, I am like an elephant, because she was in jail. It was a fight for her. Yeah. We are not talking about environment, just, you know.
To look good.
Environment in Kenya, it was a fight. And she was in the jail, and she said to the man, you can beat me, I have a elephant skin, okay? And when you meet a woman like that, you want to do more. And I remember I signed with her and with the Secretary of the United Nations to plant 1 million trees. And she said to me, you do better. And say, why? Because you have a power. You have a power, you have a company, you have 50 million women that can hurt you, and you can do more and more. Mm-hmm. That's why now I want to plant 50 million trees. 15 with you and your green hands, and I am working with 20 countries. And but I say, you know, 50 million trees, it's huge, but it's nothing. Mm-hmm. It's just 3 days of the deforestation of our planet. 3 days. And it takes 5 years for me to plant 50 million trees. That's why I think we have to be humble, really humble. We have to know that this is a fight because we destroyed the planet. I was in Rio 20 years ago, in 1992, you know, in the Earth Summit, in the first Earth Summit. We were talking about the future of the planet, but we continue to destroy the planet. And I believe that we can do something positive. When you have the power, we have to use it. I am sure that we can do.
And I don't necessarily disagree with them. You know, I do believe majority of people, of course, want to make changes to better the planet. Hopefully we all understand that, you know, the planet has limited resources, and we can't just take everything from it and give nothing back. The only problem is that even no matter how much we all want to give, there are just going to be people out there who can't due to their situation, whether it be financial or other. And then the rich people, I mean, of course they can do it with no problem. I mean, it all depends, of course. You know, there are going to be rich people who who do live humbly, and then there's going to be rich people who are arrogant and just don't care. And that applies to the poor as well too. But even if the poor wants to change, they just can't, for the most part. So yeah, that is a difficult situation, and I mean, it seems like we're heading that way, but then again, I don't know. It kind of sucks for a lot of developing countries. I talked with my friend about this, where, you know, developing countries generally, they haven't hit their industrial revolution yet, which is basically you know, getting a lot of plants going to start making materials, and by making materials you end up burning a lot of coal or whatever it is. And these countries can't afford, like, you know, the fancy new technology that's green, and then he's like, oh, your country is polluting the earth or whatever. It's like, well, it's not fair. They're just developing. They haven't went through their industrial revolution yet, and you're sitting there blaming them when they can't afford these new equipments unless you give it to them, and then, you know, that's a different story. But if they have to do it on their own, everyone has to go through these steps to get to that point.
So like Jack said, 50 million trees. One thing, it takes a lot of money, takes a lot of effort. He's been traveling all over the place, and his part is only one part. For us to put it on the ground, to make it grow, it takes a whole lot of things. And for the tree to grow, it'll take another 5 to 10 years even to become a reasonable thing that you can call it a tree. And that's removed in 3 days, okay? So, the solution is not in just doing this and that. Yes, all these things have to be done. It's fabulous that he's taken this up 50 million trees, and irrespective of which country it is he's planting, knowing that it's for the planet, not for the country. If you ask any company, but my experience with various other companies has not been the same. If I tell them, please support this, we want to plant 114 million trees, will you plant it in my state? Will you plant it in my village? Will you plant it in my factory? Not understanding that the ecological work is not about my part of the world and your part of the world. Wherever it is planted, everybody will benefit from this. And tree planting is most useful only if it happens below 30 degrees latitude. It has maximum benefit if it happens from the equator to 30 degrees latitude. That means India, segments of Africa, segments of Asia and South and America are the places to plant. That is where you find maximum benefit. Now the question is just this. We have approached just about everybody. People who are running airlines in this country, automobile industries, we worked out enormous plans for them, just saying, say suppose you drive a car, let's say you drive a Maruti car. Average, if you're driving in a year about 10,000 kilometers, this is how much carbon monoxide you release. This is how many trees if we plant. When the car is produced, if you plant this many trees, this car is taken care of. Whatever pollution that car will do in the next 10 years, that's taken care of by what we plant. And that cost can be divided between the manufacturer, the dealer and the customer. You can load it on all of them, and it's not much. It is all a question of 100 rupees, hundreds of rupees, not thousands of rupees. And I'm sure the customer will be willing to pay, knowing fully well when he drives, he's compensating for what he's using up.
And that's the thing, yeah. I mean, you know, again, like I said earlier in the last video too, is that, you know, again, upper middle class families, they're more than happy to pay to feel good about themselves temporarily. You know, I'll pay the extra $100 or whatever, and to just say that I did my part and then do nothing else afterwards. So it is more in depth in terms of getting eco-friendly. Obviously, it doesn't just apply to a car, and I'm sure Sadhguru hopefully will say this, is that it applies to everything that you purchase in life. Like me myself, I try to, whenever I'm doing my cooking, or if there's anything that I keep using up, I try to find other ways to save money. And usually it's like if I use up a lot of paper towels, I try to find cloth that I can just wash and reuse instead. Sometimes you need paper towels for like certain things because you don't want to reuse or you don't want to use cloth for that, but I try to minimize that. I try anything that I can find a way to reuse on something, I do, and I have been trying to do that. It's not because I'm rich or that I want to be eco-friendly, it's just that it's more economical for me. I end up in short term losing a lot of money, but in long term saving a lot more money. So my way of doing it is just trying to find a way to save money, honestly. Like right now, don't know why I have to say this, but I will. I'm looking at getting another vehicle, not another vehicle, but getting a vehicle and trading in my old vehicle. And at this time, only because my old vehicle that's 7 years old, the value due to the shortage has went up to the value when I first purchased it. So I lost literally almost no money on my vehicle, and I was thinking about getting like an EV vehicle, maybe a pure electric vehicle, or maybe a plug-in hybrid. That way, and even though it costs a little bit more, but in the long run, it's gonna save me a lot more money than the price I paid for it. And the only reason why I was thinking about this now, again, because my vehicle right now is probably at its highest value it'll ever be, and I won't be able to get that money back. So basically, I'm in the sense right now, I'm getting 100% of my money back that I put in 7 years ago that I used that vehicle. Basically, if I trade it in, I get 100% of my money back. But again, going EV, it's a lot cheaper to charge the car and use electric than to get gas. There's a lot less maintenance, so I don't have to keep all these other oils or whatever to do the changes in the cars. So again, I look at things in long term and not short term. Try to see, even though I pay a lot more now, generally speaking, over the long period of time, I will save more money than I would have spent. And I look at that for everything, if I can think of things.
So either we do that now, consciously, or a time will come, we will have to put a meter on your nose. How many breaths per minute are you taking, we'll have to charge you. And those who cannot pay…
We'll take off the machine.
Of course.
Yeah, but the dilemma is whether to give it as a choice. Today, desirable is that
There is…
but
we have passed the time of choice.
Yeah. But
It has to be a law.
But the regulatory controls aren't working either. There are many things that you have to do this. When there is reporting to be done on sustainability, that have you offset so many emissions, there are many people in the really business of environment. They are assurance companies, they give you standards, they give you certificates that yes, you have done it. Because there is a whole industry that is surviving on giving certificates that you are eco-friendly. They are the ones who will come and say, yes, his meter was only reading this much and his offsetting is that much. So, making it choice also is not working, making it mandatory is not working.
No, making it mandatory will have to work, it's half-hearted.
But then whose job is it?
The people's.
See, right now, if you make any law, the first lobby which opposes it is definitely the business, because they're thinking of this quarter's balance sheet. This has to change. If you change this, many of them may sink. Many of them will just sink and disappear. Many businesses will disappear if you bring in strict environmental laws. We know by our experience here in Tirupur, which is the Hosiery center, many dyeing units have just died because they insisted on just recycling the water or at least purifying it to some extent before they release it, treating it before they release it. Otherwise, if you dug a well anywhere around Tirupur, you were getting multicolored water. depending upon that day what color t-shirts they're making this kind of stuff. So now they put this law. Because of this law, hundreds of businesses just sank. The reason for these businesses to sink…
Before he gets to that, and the scary thing about that, I hope he speaks on this, is that yes, what he's saying is correct. When you start putting a lot of things into law, there's a couple of things that happen. I'll say two, but there might be more. But first things first is what he discussed basically. When you put something into law and then all of a sudden the price to make whatever you're selling goes up, you're going to go out of business because you can't sell anything because people are not buying. The second thing was the fact that the price went up. So business going out for the reason of the price going up. You can't afford to buy the materials, or maybe you say, okay, now I have to buy this materials, but I'm gonna have to upcharge my product because now it's costing a lot more for me to make this because of these laws. And don't get me wrong, he has the right idea, but we have to be considerate of what kind of effects is going to happen. Clearly he saw one of the effects is the fact when you make something into law, and if a business cannot cope, that business is going to go out of business. The business is going to go out of business. So three things, let's go here. The business is going to go out of business, or the business is going to have to raise prices. And then the third one, which goes with the business going out of business. Now there's people not working anymore. There's not enough jobs. Now you have people who used to have a job, now doesn't have a job, and they're not making any money. Now they're struggling. It's a really tough balance, honestly. It really is. You can't just keep pushing laws and expecting the business to succeed. The small businesses are generally ones that will be affected the most. It's kind of like the poor people, the poor businesses, the small businesses who are forced into this regulation, and they don't have the money, the capital to adjust to it, and they go out of business. I mean, in well, this is unrelated, but in America, there's a lot of food industry business that went out of business during the shutdown. The government put a shutdown on everything. Well, now a lot of people lost their jobs, and then all of a sudden the businesses went out of business because they can't make money, and they can't afford to rent, or maybe they just opened up and all of a sudden they closed down for 2 or 3 months, and since they can't pay their debt, they bankruptcy. You know, it's really tough. Is there a right answer? I'm sure there is. What is it? Somewhere in the middle. What's the middle? I don't know.
Is not the way for us to understand that environmental laws are against business. The reason for these businesses to sink is, these businesses are running on ramshackle infrastructure. They are trying to make a business out of nothing. Yes, that is enterprise, I understand. But even enterprise has to stand on 4 legs. Those enterprises which are tottering on a single leg, they will all fall. And that has to happen, we can't help it. That has to happen. Survival of the fittest will everywhere go, I mean, everywhere it's a law, isn't it? So…
I hope he says that, well, when those businesses topple, every employee they have are now out of a job. And here's another thing too, I just now thought about. I mean, I've always known this, but that just so happens to come up. Your pay in the world is dependent on how much availability of people there is. If there's 50 million people looking for jobs and there's one job opening, that person that has a job opening can talk to every single one of them and find out who's the cheapest one but the best one. He has the pick of the litter of who he wants to hire. Now imagine there's 50 million job openings, only one person, and every single one of them needs that one person to make a lot of money. Then he's going to go around to all the businesses like, oh, only $40,000 a year? Let me go to the next person. You know, each of them are going to compete to pay the highest they can afford, but obviously they cannot pay more than they can afford because they'll hire the person to lose money. That's not how business will work. He's going to look for a business that'll pay the highest price, or maybe even not the highest price, but that somewhere along the lines of high price but nice job. And the business will pay that person up to a certain point, because once it gets past that point, it's better not to hire the person because it's losing money at that point.
Making it a law on many levels is most important, and enforcing the law is not going to be easy. But it's easier to enforce it on the businesses than on the common people. If you make a law to enforce it to the whole population, that's going to be an enormous task and we won't be successful in that. But to enforce a law upon the business is easy because they're always in the scrutiny, they're always in the scanner, so it's easy to scrutinize them and make sure they pay for it. If they don't follow the law, don't put them in the prison, just make them pay for it financially. So those who are not willing to put up the treatment plant, they're willing to pay the fine, let them pay the fine at least.
Yeah, but even when you will have stringent laws and monitor their performance, the
Sorry, I have so much thought about this. Why? And another thing, she said, like, okay, yeah, you have stringent law. Who's gonna make sure they follow this law? So you have the government has to maybe increase the taxes to hire another department that goes out and makes sure that these people are, doing their job or following the law. So that's an increase in taxes to the people that maybe if the government never had that in the first place. But put it this way, regardless whether the government had that position open or not, someone has to pay for that position. It's generally going to be the people. So you have higher taxes for the people of someone just going around saying these things. Again, it's something that has to happen. It's something that that people hopefully consider. Government doesn't just make money out of thin air, not all the time. And the fact that, yes, I hope Sadhguru also thinks about, whenever, even though you impose laws into business and corporations, if it's a fee or if something to increase the cost of the business, that increased cost is generally going to pass down to the customers. It's like, hey, look, the government's saying that we have to spend $2 billion a year on something to stay green, so we're going to have to increase the prices to pay for that. Kind of like the government, whenever it needs to do something new, it's going to increase the taxes on the people to do that. There's just no free money anywhere.
support services in countries like ours are not sufficient. For
No,
example,
that is the whole
waste
thing.
disposal.
That is the whole thing. Right now, if you have failed to run a Hosiery unit successfully, you can go into waste management. You have an opportunity for enterprise.
Yeah, but landfilling is currently so rampant, and there are vendors and vendors who come and give you a service of cleaning your backyard. So a company looks good by saying that, okay, are you giving it to a lawful vendor a contract of waste disposal? Yes. Now thereafter, the vendor, being often a small enterprise or even an unregistered enterprise, does not come under the control of the law that you're talking about. Creating another set of law for them would mean penalizing people.
No, let's get this straight. There is no business. Actually, there should be no business in this country which is not under the law. There is no citizen in this country who is not under the law, isn't it? So similarly, why is a business running not being under the law?
I get what they're both saying. There are people out there who start up their own business because they're so small they can go under the radar. But the thing is, what I think Sadhguru could say is the fact that then, the person that goes out there and checks these things say, hey, okay, so who's removing all your trash? And they say, oh, company ABC. Oh, ABC company, okay. I'm gonna go to ABC and see when they remove your trash. Oh no, you don't want me to go? Oh, then why not? You said ABC takes out your trash. I'm gonna have to go verify that. Then if they lie, then they can get fined. So, and then you can ask them how often ABC takes out their trash, and they say, oh yeah, once every week. And he goes to ABC, it's like, oh yeah, we take out their trash every 2 weeks. Oh, 2 weeks, they say once every week. Ah, something fishy going on. I mean, there's ways to check. It's kind of hard though, because a large country will have a lot of businesses, and it's much harder for a government to run a country that's so massive. And this is something, again, I talked with my friend about. Like, I challenged him on something, and he failed, and someone else did succeed, but I will not count that. There's an exception to the rule. So generally speaking, it's much more difficult for a country to run. It's much more difficult for the government to run a country when a country's so big, because the people are spread out. You have to have all these people that's hired from the government to be all over these places and to verify all these places, and then you have to make sure the people who verify all these places aren't corrupt either, you know, because they're so far away from the government. He's like, hey, the government calls, hey, are they doing good? They're doing good. Okay, thank you. And you know, that's the only interaction you have with the government, because you know the government's only in one place, or you have local governments, but it's just corruption can still happen, especially the more distant away from the government, even in the government itself, of course. But yeah, it's difficult. We do the best we can. What's the right answer? Somewhere in the middle. Where's the middle? I don't know.
So that shows that you're not administering the place.
Yeah, that's why I said whose business it is to make sure that every business is registered. Because if we were, so far we were talking only about the cakes and eco-friendly materials or wind energy, but there are like, people are not only making cake, they are making hazardous poisons to be sold and drunk in the market. And they are governed by the same laws as people who are having more safer products. So when you register a business or a product, those conditions that have to be seen, it's a humongous task. And businesses cannot take responsibility.
Actually, it is not. It is the way we are approaching it. So, for example, in this country now, if you want to build a building, in Tamil Nadu, if you want to build any building, in Coimbatore city, mainly there are 14 different departments through which you have to go through. It is like having 14 lifetimes. The experience of shame, death and retribution and being born again before you go to the next department. Why? Why so many? Now you can make a simple law. These are the norms to build a building in Coimbatore city. If anybody wants to build a building, print one 5 rupee notebook, which can be a printed book, which… If I want to build a building, I must read the law. I must know what's the law. Build accordingly. Only thing is, you can't use it till you get a certification. When the certification thing comes, it is very simple. If it is by the law, he gets a certificate. If it's not by the law, the building goes down and you go in.
I get her point of view, and I agree with her. I think she's going along the lines of like really tiny businesses who are like owned by one person. It's very difficult for the government to keep track of every single little tiny itsy-bitsy business. Businesses with 10 people, the more people a business has, the easier it is for the government to track. And I agree with her in that. It's difficult to find, like, there's 50 million small businesses everywhere or something like that. And it's hard to find every single individual one of them. And even if they don't register themselves as a business, it's very difficult for a government to find, like, oh, you own a business. You know, they slip under the radar a lot. And I have a feeling she may counter with, oh, they get this certificate. Well, they can forge certificates. But of course, if someone goes there and checks and verifies their certificate, you know, maybe they'll catch them. Sometimes some people will see the certificate and won't even verify. It's like, oh, yep, looks legit. Continue on. And then you have maybe places that are so spread out, like the nearest neighbor for someone is like a mile away or a kilometer away, and you know, government really doesn't go out to these areas because it's just a lot of waste of time, a lot of empty space, and they just don't. And they can build a whole bunch of stuff that may not be up to code, and the government will just let them because it's just so far, so spread out. You know, the governments tend to, I'm saying this like I know it, but I don't. But I would assume they tend to go to larger populations in areas where they're kind of spread out, not so much.
I'm saying, why are we running… Why are you scrutinizing my plan, my plumbing, my sanitary? Why are you scrutinizing all this nonsense? Anyway, I can give you something and not do that anyway. You can't scrutinize that. I'm saying you just have a final scrutiny after I've done it. If it's by the law, I get to use it. If it's not by the law, shut it down, isn't it?
So there is a whole section of society which is surviving on this license Raj, as they say. So many people, instead of going through these 14 births that you are saying, they take the second birth and go by going…
No, first we have to die, you must understand.
But then they just go to USA or migrate somewhere and
Oh,
come
yeah.
back here only for inner engineering.
That will be good too if they migrate.
So people are finding easy escape because India cannot be changed. Let's go somewhere else
No,
for
no,
our
it
business
is…
and
You need to understand they are very eco-friendly. People who go away to United States or people who go to South America or Africa are ecologically very good for India.
Yes, but India doesn't change. But India doesn't change, no?
No, India will change if we export half the population. India will change dramatically.
Dang.
That's a whole new business, I would say.
No,
And people are doing it.
See,
That's what is called
there are
body
many
shopping.
societies where the biggest problem is human resource. For India, the biggest problem is natural resource. Human resource is plenty. Not only plenty, it's young. It is young. We are the only country in the world which has over 600 million youth. It's a tremendous possibility. They should go and work across the planet. We can build a whole new world with 600 million people working hard to make it happen. In the other countries, they've had generations of affluence and the youth are not willing to work. They want a holiday. Yes.
When he said holiday, I'm assuming he's talking about Europe, because in America they don't say holiday, they say vacation. But I know what it means.
Yes.
I mean, I'm saying this is a cycle of things in any society. They go through a period of affluence, those people are not interested in working, they want to become something else. But these people have not seen affluence, they want to work, wherever it is, whatever it is, they want to work because they want to make it. So if you do not discriminate between nation and nation, if you do not cut the planet into pieces and allow little more, I know you can't completely eliminate these things, little more porosity as to wherever people want to move on this planet, let them move. If somebody is looking for employment, they go to United States, somebody is looking for a spiritual process, they come to India, is it not a good exchange?
She can't deny that.
If you want to come to India, you are stopping them. If you want to go to United States, you're stopping them. What the hell is this about?
So whether businesses or migration, whoever controls this or decides policy related to this, as you said, the political will, people who are minding these businesses of, countries, societies, they have to have this wisdom and this outlook.
Now, when we're talking about law, we're definitely talking about the lawmakers.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, very much.
obviously. But the reason lawmakers are today, the way the businesses have grown is, lawmakers are in many ways subservient to the businesses. In many ways. So, the businesses can play a key role if there is a change of heart in them, but they are not thinking beyond this year's balance sheet. A few are thinking beyond. There are many like him, I'm not saying this is the only one, there are many, but not enough still.
Yeah, we often…
Not enough to find a solution. There is enough ecological awareness for cosmetic appeal. I'm sorry, I don't mean anything.
That girl with the
For
jokes.
cosmetic appeal, there is enough ecological awareness. There is not enough ecological awareness and not enough movement in the world for a solution. Like he said, 50 million trees, it sounds so big and so fantastic, but they will pull it out in 3 days. I say it like this, but Jacques will say like this. For him, this is 3. For me, this is 3, but it's still 3. For me, this is 3.
Yeah,
Again, when he was talking about all this stuff, I don't know why all of a sudden I thought about, like, again, I would love to have solar panels over my house to charge a battery so that running some electricity would be practically free. Solar panels and upgrading the house would cost so much money. But again, I think of it in the long term, where how much money that will save me over the 10 years that I have it, and then after 10 years, I'm making money off of it. Hey, look. Making money, right? Bad things. A lot of people would say that's a bad thing, but not necessarily, There's some good things out of that. Money for me, I mean, I'm not like seeing it, like it's not literally giving me cash, but it's just me not spending more money, and I can use it for other things. Charging my car off that battery, solar panel, using the battery to, I don't know, stuff in the house. Reusing stuff around the house instead of using disposable things. I try to get reusable stuff so I don't have to keep buying more. I just reuse the same things over and over again. As a matter of fact, I bought a bidet. I will just leave it at that.
So if the mindsets and the worldview of both lawmakers and business leaders have to change, now you have a room large enough to lock them here.
Waiting for them to change is not the way. This is not a spiritual process.
No.
This is… If it's a spiritual process, I create a situation and wait for them to change. But this is a disaster looming on us.
So how would you
There
deal
is
with
no
them?
waiting.
So how
You have to shoot them. You have to shoot them
That's
not…
it has to be like that.
Shoot them not with a gun, but with a law. You have to shoot them with a law.
Kind of interchangeable in a sense, just because, again, you know, and what I mean by that is, so you shoot them with the law. Okay, say they don't follow the law, then what? A lot of people say this over here in the United States. Well, not a lot. I don't know why I keep saying a lot, but there are people in the United States that say this. Laws are I'm putting it in my words. Laws are basically government guns, you could say. Because if you don't follow the law, guess what happens? The cops will come to you, and if you don't follow the cops, they'll put a gun to you. In a sense, they'll put a gun to you. They'll force you into whatever it is they need to. They'll force you to jail. If you resist, they'll put the gun to you. I'm not saying they'll shoot you. They'll make sure that you go to jail. You know, so much. I mean, the cops are just doing their jobs. It's not like they want to do this, but they're the enforcers of the law, and that's their job. You know, they don't necessarily interpret the law. They execute the law. The judge is the one that interprets the law, and the jury. So basically, if the judge says, "Hey, you know, we go arrest them," their job is not to question the judge. Their job is not to talk to you about, you know, how the law is interpreted or anything. Their job is just to, you know, hey, look, the judge says that, you know, you have to be arrested. They're going to take you by force, take you by the gun if they have to. So taking people with the law as a gun is, in a sense, can be literal, because again, if you don't follow the law, they'll try to arrest you. If you resist arrest, they'll probably get the gun on you. Hopefully just to intimidate and get you to cooperate. But yes, laws and guns in a sense can be the same.
An appropriate law which will fix them. When I say shoot, don't think of killing.
Yeah, but
you know, even an injection is a shot, isn't it?
Yeah, so the urgency of our environmental sustainability is so much, and need for businesses to grow still there, and this young population needs hands to work. So somewhere we have
if you change the landscape of business, some will suffer, some will drown, but immediately they'll adapt and learn to do business in the new atmosphere that we create. Somebody should have the courage to create the new atmosphere.
I just hope he realizes by changing things so drastically, it affects more than just the business. It affects the poor the most. Whatever happens in terms of law and business tend to happen to the poor. The poor are always the victim in terms of these things. Because if a business go out of business, then guess what? There are people that are unemployed. If a business all of a sudden can cope with it by firing a few people, then there's more people unemployed. But they fire those people to keep the profits and increase the price of the product, which then affects the poor. The middle class, generally speaking, the more money you have, the less effect these things tend to have. So I hope Sadhguru thinks about these things. I don't know. I mean, he's saying this very fervently, but I don't even know if I used that word correctly. But he says it so confidently. I just hope, you know, they understand that, you know, generally speaking, the poorest, the one that suffers the most when there are a lot of laws that are changed for businesses. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are currently businesses out there who charge a lot But I mean, I understand what he's saying. You know, you have to put the law in there. Eventually, things will work out, but it's generally there's a lot of suffering involved until that change, until the market adapts. I do believe the market will always adapt. If there's an influx of people or a lack of people, and in America over here, there's not a lot of people wanting to go back to work. All of a sudden, you know, your hourly pay actually increase willingly because they need people to work to make money. So they're willing to pay people more money to work, and the marketplace adjusted for it. I mean, that's not to say that every time the market adjusts, there's always good things. No, not necessarily, but the market. I do believe the market would always adjust, whether that be for the good or the bad.
So how to identify these people who have courage and make them perform? Because today the people who should be doing these things are subservient to one thing or the other, systems, businesses.
No, you're still talking about businesses who have the courage. I'm saying
No, I'm talking
businesses
even
who
about
have the courage to do such things are seen by the larger business community as the stupid lot, because they're losing out on their profits, because the business is about profit. Now, when you say you're in charge of the corporate social responsibility, you have allocated a small percentage of your profit, yes? Fortunately, your business itself is eco-oriented, that's a different thing. But suppose, let's say you are producing generator sets instead of windmills, because both are generators, it is just that you're using the natural force to do that. So suppose you are doing generator sets, you allocate the same amount of your profit for CSR, still I'm saying that's not the way. CSR is only cosmetic in nature. It does things for awareness, but it will not create a solution. It cannot create a solution. Simply add up all the CSR amount in the world and just see what is the amount. It's peanuts. You can't change the world with that.
Yeah, but the way we are interpreting CSR in my company as well as there are many other companies who look at CSR as not something that you do as a frill. After you do all your business the way you want and then use little bit of your profit to look good or do something good. That's not CSR. We say it's not looking good or doing good, but being good. Doing each of your activity by taking responsibility for the mess that you create.
No.
I will say I like the dude. He just sits there, like, yeah, just sits there and listens, like, yeah. Dude hasn't had a chance to talk too much. Me just waiting his turn, just chilling.
What I'm saying is, with your business, Suzlon is a different kind of business.
No.
Your business itself is eco-oriented. You can, instead of doing CSR, I would say you must do your business more aggressively. When I say aggressively, don't limit just to wind, bioenergy, solar energy, everything in the same land. I was just wanting to propose, we will create a solar panel. This thing, if you give me 1,000 acres, I'll fill it with solar panels and generate power, I'll pay you rent for your land. You do business, I'm saying. Don't do service, leave the service to me. You do business.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Now, why I'm saying this is, because only then you will do it large scale. Otherwise, you'll do it only this much.
Yeah, but even the eco-friendly businesses can be done in a way that can harm societies and environment. That's possibility. For example, just transport of turbines can spoil the road in a way that local people will suffer from it.
That is why I'm saying, make a business of all those things.
Absolutely. I think Suzlon is about Suz and alone. They think about a new idea, and I'm sure I'll reach your message to
all you have to do
CMD.
is, one thing is, you can create fish farms, which nourishment is a huge problem in South India. You can create fish farms, which all these things I've already given you. You can create fish farms. Wherever possible, we can grow trees and ask them to use it for goat rearing and other things. We can create solar villages out there. You can… if it is in the wind tunnel, the villages, you can make small wind turbines for each house. Or for the village, you can build a small one which will power the village free of cost if it powers. You think they will be against you, they will support you, they'll come and work free for you.
Certainly.
So, you make a business of all these things. I'm saying, don't make it a service. If you provide power for the village, He's paying 4 rupees a unit, make him pay 2 rupees a unit, he will be too happy. And for the remaining 2 rupees, ask him to work for you. He will work for you. I'm saying businesses can be worked out on various levels which are beneficial to the local people, so that they will support and sustain this whole process or this whole… I would say this whole movement towards moving to a more friendly way of doing… eco-friendly way of doing things.
Response.
That's not a bad idea, but I just wonder how practical that is whenever it becomes a developed area, you know? These are fantastic ideas for small villages, you know. It's like, hey, you know, we'll set up wind turbines and or solar panels and provide energy, and say, well, we'll let you run it, and as long as let us set it up, it'll provide power for you for free, and we'll just have you ensure that everything's… or I'm not exactly sure how it says it, but just they'll basically run it and continue to propagate that so that they continue to get the free energy. It's clean energy. But whenever the population gets bigger, and there's the problem, and then once the solar panels are not producing enough energy to sustain the new technologies they acquired because of the free energy, then they end up resorting to other things. But again, that's just it's a temporary bandage, like Sadhguru was saying. It's not necessarily the true solution to the problem, but I honestly don't know. I don't know what it is.
Responsible business is CSR. In our case, it's much easier to do that, but in
That's
other cases
that's
also.
a new definition of CSR you're doing right
Definitely.
there.
That's what we are… that's a new definition. And
Yes.
in Europe, if you see, Northern Europe, people talk about having lesser emissions, having lesser energy consumption, using biodegradable products, having less waste to dispose of. This is CSR. CSR is not do-gooding, fixing communities out there and doing something nice to others. That's a more Virappan kind of model, as they say, that you earn as you want and spend a little bit for charity. That's not what is CSR. CSR will have to be increasingly doing business responsibly, taking responsibility for every action that you do. And it's much easier when we talk of environment, because environment is visible. Don't cut trees, you come to know whether trees are cut.
What I'm telling you is, if
But
you go
social
like this,
environment.
if you go like this, now Jack is doing this, okay? Tomorrow, after a few years, after many years, many years, okay? When his son takes over, he may not be interested in doing it. I'm not saying necessarily, just as an example I'm saying. The next person in the line may not be interested in doing it. So what are you going to do with him? I'm saying fix the law that everybody has to do business in a certain way. This will create a certain amount of upheaval, but it will be long-lasting.
So creating these lawmakers by shooting them, by threatening them, by making somehow sure that these kind of laws come into our society, that businesses are not done irresponsibly by harming others, but a long-term well-being of all.
The reason the lawmakers are not willing to make the laws most of the time is it's the business lobbies which don't allow them to make those laws.
And I'll say there's an idea here in America that a lot of people… I keep saying a lot of people. There are people out there who believe that private businesses, on the most part, should be run by the private individual, and the government should not be intervening or putting out so much laws out there. I do tend to agree with that to a degree. I understand there needs to be laws. I'm, again, somewhere in the middle, somewhere there. But you cannot have too many laws where it becomes very difficult for people to start up businesses. And we need some laws so that the corporation don't just run rampant. Again, somewhere in the middle. Where's the middle? I don't know. It is a very difficult, let's say, a path to find the middle. You just have to, I guess, trial and error, I suppose. But I'm typically against government putting so many laws out there, but I'm not against government putting laws out there. That's like a no answer right there. But I hope I came across clearly. It's just again, I understand that we need to have laws, because you can't just have, you know, corporations just taking everything or just abusing the land, and then it's like, oh, the land's bad, here, take it, we'll sell it back to the poor and go to another land. And abuse the land there. But also we can't have government just constantly berating businesses because, you know, businesses could end up going out of business. That hurts the people. Small businesses gets hurt by the government because they're so enforceful on them, and small businesses can't thrive. People can't start small businesses, and the big businesses will just pass these fees on to the customer, which then makes whatever they need cost more, and yeah, that happens.
But then whoever is
Why
responsible for
why is
making
it the
a better
American
business-
government never comes out in favor of any ecological loss in the world is because the American business lobby puts so much pressure. Even when they have the intention to do it, they put so much pressure on them, they give up because without their support they can't stay.
So whatever are those root causes, whether they are in business houses which hold the purse, or you know, political will that is not allowing to make it happen, or some vested interests of some individuals, how to make it happen is the thing. Yes, laws are required, stringent action is required, urgently it is required, all agreed. Now we have to make it happen, and people like this who are very keenly listening to this conversation want solutions. How should we do it?
There is no one place to start. One important thing is we need responsible movements, because every politician in the world, every administration in the world, because today world is largely democratic, they depend upon people, common people who put the vote.
Makes it sound like it's a bad thing.
The business may have money, but the people have the vote, which is a real thing. At a certain point, at least once in a few years, human beings or citizenry is a reality, otherwise they're a virtual reality. They're not really there, you know. So when they're a reality, it is very important that we build a movement which can put enough pressure on businesses which operate in the area and on the lawmakers in the area, that unless these things are done, normally the activists are taking a very violent, anti-somebody kind of mode.
Negative.
You need to understand this. When you're an ecological movement, you're not against anybody, you're for everybody. That's the reason why you want to do this. The only reason why you want to take up ecological work is you're for every life upon the planet, not just human beings. You want the insects and the worms also to live well, because you understand our life is not separate from each other, our life is an integrated and a connected life. How healthy the worms are today will determine how healthy we are tomorrow. We know this very well today. So because only somebody who is for all life can take up ecological work. But till now, the eco movements have always been against somebody. This mode has to change. The eco movements and the activists have to change and mature into a different level of activism, which is yet to happen. A few have come up here and there, Green Hands movements is happening. One thing that we are proud of with the Green Hands movement is more than what we have planted, that has happened phenomenally well because of people's support, but it has bred so many other movements. So many other people have started doing this, which is a wonderful thing. And the government of Tamil Nadu itself is trying to outdo us all the time now. It's really, really good. This year we are planting 60 lakh or 6 million trees, they are planting 64.
Very good.
But we will make sure our survival rate is very good. I don't know whether they can make sure, but I'm sure they will also try their best. But that's good. So that's what is needed, that this becomes part of everybody's life. It is in the schools, the children are talking about it. Once the children start talking about it, they won't let their parents be something else, they will make them eco-friendly. All these things not as a solution, but to become a movement to a point where the necessary loss will come. Without the necessary loss, there is no solution. It is only cosmetic.
Okay, this is running. Hopefully I can fit that last 40 minutes in the next video. Alright, so that's my reaction to part 2 of Sadhguru and conversation with a mystic, environmental, and sustainable development. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.